polar regions of our Earth offer the harshest conditions for organisms to live due to its icy sea temperature of around -0.5 degrees Celsius. Surprisingly, some organisms are able to thrive under these conditions. One of these organisms is sea ice algae. Sea ice algae are able to live underneath the sea ice all year round in the polar regions. They are primary producers and therefore carry out photosynthesis. This is a very important process to the Arctic and Antarctic food web, as it provides nutrition to organisms up the food web. Ice algal blooms can be triggered by high sunlight conditions. However, it has been argued whether these organisms can produce their blooms under low light, alongside whether the reduction of snow coverage on sea ice will affect the timing of algal blooms. Caspar Hannock and friends wanted to test whether their sea ice algae were productive under extreme low-light conditions as a result of high snow coverage on top of the sea ice. They tested this by quantifying and measuring the minimum light requirement needed to support the growth of sea ice algae. This was done by measuring the thickness of the snow cover on top of the sea ice. The photosynthetic activity was recorded using a pulse amplitude modulation. This records the emission of light by the sea ice algae. It was discovered by Caspar Hannock and friends that the ice algal blooms can be triggered by low light conditions and in fact grow better under these low light conditions. This is because the snow cover on the ice helps to provide stable conditions all year round for the sea ice algae. Future climate conditions are predicted to become warmer. So what does this mean for the production of sea ice algae? Well, the warming conditions will mean that the snow that sits on top of the sea ice will disappear early in the season, causing a major disruption to the sea ice algae blooms. This would lead to premature blooming and therefore disrupting the Arctic food web. This also suggests that the temporal and spatial distribution of the sea ice algae throughout the year will be inconsistent over time. Climate change will induce more sea ice algae blooms, of which will have impact on carbon turnover. However, the implications of climate change on sea ice algae as a primary producer means that the structure of the food web may be impacted. Migrating marine organisms that rely on sea ice algae as their main source of food would be greatly impacted by the effect of climate change on the sea ice algae.